She knelt beside the stranger in the alley, his pulse barely there beneath her trembling fingers, and whispered the same prayer her mother once said over her, that broken things can still be saved. She didn't know that the man she'd pulled from death's door would soon make the world kneel for her. Zara Mikhailovna wiped down the counter of Stella's diner for the third time that hour, her shoulders aching in that familiar way that told her she'd been on her feet for 11 hours straight. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting everything in a sickly yellow that made the coffee look worse than it tasted. Through the window, the city sprawled in neon and shadow, beautiful and brutal in equal measure. "Table 6 needs a refill," Marcy called from the kitchen, her voice hoarse from cigarettes and years of swallowing words. Zara nodded, grabbing the coffee pot with hands that had long stopped shaking from exhaustion. She'd worked the double shift because Keisha's daughter was sick, and before that, she'd covered for Ramon's court date. That's what you did. You showed up. You carried what you could. You didn't complain. Her reflection in the darkened window showed a woman of 27 who looked older in the eyes, brown eyes that had seen too much and still somehow looked for good in people. Her black hair was pulled back in a bun that had started neat 12 hours ago, and her uniform smelled like fryer oil and other people's problems. The bell above the door chimed, and 3 men in expensive suits walked in, their presence immediately wrong. They didn't sit. They scanned the room like predators counting exits, and when the shortest one's eyes landed on her, Zara felt something cold slide down her spine. "We're closing soon," she said, keeping her voice steady. "We're not hungry," the man replied, and his smile was a blade wrapped in politeness. They left, but the wrongness stayed. Across the city, in a penthouse that cost more than most people earned in a lifetime, Dante Corvinus stood at floor-to-ceiling windows and watched his empire glitter below. At 34, he'd built an empire from his father's ashes: technology, real estate, influence that moved markets with a whisper. His reflection showed a man carved from granite and expensive tailoring, dark eyes that calculated everything, a jaw that had forgotten how to unclench. His phone buzzed. A message from his head of security: meeting location changed. Warehouse district. Midnight. Dante's instincts whispered danger, but instincts were for people who had something to lose. He'd lost everything that mattered when he was 19. What remained was purpose, power, and the cold satisfaction of watching lesser men realize they'd made a mistake. He went to the meeting anyway. Zara locked the diner at midnight, her tips for the day weighing heavy in her apron pocket, barely enough to cover the electric bill and her neighbor Mrs. Chen's medication. The old woman had no one else, and Zara couldn't stomach the idea of her choosing between pills and food. She took the shortcut through the warehouse district because the bus had stopped running and she was tired in her bones. The alley smelled like rain and rotting dreams, but it saved 15 minutes, and those minutes meant sleep. That's when she saw him. A man lay crumpled against a dumpster, his expensive suit torn, his face pale as death in the sickly glow of a distant streetlight. Blood trickled from his temple. His breathing was shallow, wrong. Zara's nursing school training, cut short when her mother got sick, kicked in before thought could. She dropped to her knees beside him, fingers finding his pulse. Slow. Too slow. His lips were faintly blue. The pupils, when she pried one eye open, were pinpoints. Drugged. Her hands moved on instinct, turning him to his side in case he vomited, checking his airway. She pulled out her phone to call 911, but his hand suddenly shot out, gripping her wrist with surprising strength. His eyes opened, dark, unfocused, but burning with something fierce. "Don't," he rasped. "They'll come back. You need a hospital." "No hospitals." His grip tightened. "Please." There was something in his voice, beneath the drugs and desperation, that sounded like a man who knew that hospitals meant records, and records meant death. Zara made a choice that would change everything. "Can you walk?" Zara's apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up that smelled like the curry Mrs. Chun cooked every Sunday and the lavender soap she used to mask the building's decay. She half-carried, half-dragged the stranger up 3 flights of stairs, his weight pressed against her shoulder, her muscles screaming with each step. "Almost there," she whispered, though she didn't know if he could hear her anymore. His head lolled against her neck, and she could feel his breath, shallow and warm, against her skin. Each exhale felt like a countdown. Inside her apartment, She lowered him onto her worn couch, the springs groaning under his weight. Under the single lamp's glow, she could see him properly for the first time. The man was beautiful in that carved, dangerous way, sharp cheekbones, a jaw that looked like it had never softened for anyone, dark hair that fell across his forehead. But it was the scars she noticed most. A thin line along his collar. Another disappearing into his hairline. These were marks of a man who'd survived things. Zara's hands worked quickly, checking his vitals again. Pulse still weak, but steady. Breathing shallow. She pulled a blanket over him, then filled a glass with water and set it on the coffee table beside the couch. She should have called someone. This was reckless. Stupid. But something in his eyes when he begged her not to take him to a hospital had reached into a memory she kept locked away. Her mother, gripping her hand in that final hospital room, whispering, "Sometimes the system meant to save you is the thing that destroys you." Zara settled into the chair across from him, pulling her knees to her chest, and waited. Hours crawled by. Outside her window, the city never slept. Sirens wailed, someone shouted in Russian, a bottle shattered against pavement. Inside, there was only the sound of his breathing and the hammer of her heart. At 4 a.m., his eyes opened. For a moment, he stared at the unfamiliar ceiling, his body going rigid. Then his gaze found her, and something shifted in his expression, confusion giving way to a dangerous clarity. "Where am I?" His voice was rough, scraping gravel. "My apartment. You were drugged. Left in an alley near Warehouse 9. He sat up too fast, his hand going to his head, wincing. "You should have left me there. You would have died." Maybe that was the point. He stood, swaying slightly, his eyes scanning the room, cataloging exits, threats, advantages. It was instinct, she realized. This man lived in a world where every room was a potential trap. "Who are you?" Zara asked, standing too, though she kept the chair between them. He looked at her then, really looked, and something in his expression cracked. She saw him take in her exhausted face, her work uniform still stained with coffee and grease, the apartment that was clean but clearly worn by years of just barely surviving. His gaze moved to her hands, calloused, strong, the hands of someone who worked too hard for too little. "Someone who brings trouble," he said quietly. "And you just invited it into your home." "I invited a dying man into my home. There's a difference." A ghost of something, surprise, maybe respect, flickered across his face. "What's your name?" "Zara." "Zara." He repeated it like he was memorizing it. "I'm Dante." The name meant nothing to her, but the way he said it, like an admission, like a warning, made her pulse quicken. "Do you know who drugged you?" His jaw clenched. "Business partners who decided I was worth more dead than alive." "That's not business. That's murder. In my world, they're the same thing." Dante moved toward the door, his steps still unsteady. Zara noticed he was trying to hide it, this man who'd probably never shown weakness in his life. He reached for the doorknob, and she saw his hand tremble. "Wait." She didn't know why she said it. "You can barely stand. Just rest a few more hours. Then you can go back to your world and I'll go back to mine." He turned to her, and the look in his eyes made her breath catch. It wasn't gratitude. It was something more intense, more dangerous. "Why did you help me?" Zara thought about all the true answers, because her mother had taught her that compassion wasn't optional, because she'd been helpless once and someone had helped her, because she couldn't walk past suffering without trying to stop it. But what came out was simpler. "Because you asked me to." Something shifted in the air between them. Dante took a step back toward her, and then another, until he was close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes, close enough to see that beneath the hard exterior was something raw and barely contained. "You have no idea what you've done," he said, his voice low and rough. "Saving me. Bringing me here. Letting me see you." "What do you mean?" His hand lifted, and for a moment she thought he might touch her face. Instead, his fingers hovered near her cheek, not quite connecting, as if he was afraid he might break her. "It means," he said quietly, "that I'm going to remember you. And in my world, That's the most dangerous thing that can happen to someone like you." Before she could respond, his phone, cracked but still functioning, buzzed in his jacket pocket. He pulled it out, his expression darkening as he read the screen. "I have to go." He looked at her one more time, and there was something in his gaze that felt like a promise or a threat or both. "Lock your door. Don't open it for anyone. And Zara," he paused at the threshold, "forget you ever saw me." Then he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of expensive cologne and blood, and a warmth in the air where he'd stood. Zara locked the door with shaking hands. She told herself it was fear, but part of her knew it was something else entirely. She didn't know that in that moment, Dante Corvinus had made a decision that would reshape both their lives. She'd saved him when he was powerless, asked for nothing, expected nothing. In a world where everyone wanted something from him, she'd simply wanted him to live. And for that, he would make sure nothing in this world ever hurt her again. The diner's morning rush hit like a wave, and Zara moved through it on autopilot, coffee pot in one hand, order pad in the other, smile plastered on her face like armor. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying the night in fragments. The weight of his body against hers. The way he'd looked at her in that last moment, like she was something precious and terrifying at once. "Forget you ever saw me." She was trying. God, she was trying. "Zara, you okay?" Marcy asked, sliding past her with a tray of pancakes. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Just tired," Zara lied, refilling cup after cup, her hands steady even as her thoughts spiraled. She'd checked the news that morning, half expecting to see something about a body in an alley or a missing businessman. Instead, there was nothing. Like the whole night had been a fever dream. Except her couch still smelled like expensive cologne. And when she'd gone to throw away the glass of water, she'd found $500 bills tucked underneath it, held down by a business card with nothing but a phone number embossed in silver. The money sat heavy in her apron pocket now, burning like evidence of something she didn't understand. Across the city, in a conference room on the 47th floor of Corvinus Tower, Dante sat at the head of a table surrounded by men in suits who thought they were predators. His head of security, Alexei, stood by the door like a sentinel. "The contract terms are non-negotiable," one of the men was saying, his voice oily with false confidence. Dante hadn't spoken in 15 minutes. He simply watched them, his expression unreadable, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. He'd learned long ago that silence was a weapon more effective than words. But his mind wasn't on contracts or negotiations. It was on a woman with exhausted eyes and gentle hands, who'd knelt in an alley and chosen mercy when she should have chosen safety. He'd spent the morning having Alexei run a complete background check. Zara Mikhailovna, 27, orphaned at 19 when her mother died of cancer. Nursing school dropout, not because she failed, but because she'd burned through her savings paying medical bills. Worked 3 jobs at one point. Now down to 2. No criminal record. No enemies. No one. She was invisible in all the ways that mattered to the world, which made what he was about to do either the kindest or cruelest thing he'd ever done. "Mr. Corvinus." The man's voice cut through his thoughts. "Did you hear my proposal?" Dante's eyes refocused, cold and sharp. "I heard it. The answer is no. This meeting is over. You can't just." "Alexei, escort these gentlemen out." Dante stood, buttoning his suit jacket with precise movements. "And make sure they understand that if they ever try to drug me again, they won't wake up in an alley. They simply won't wake up." The color drained from the men's faces. They scrambled from the room like rats from a sinking ship. When they were gone, Alexei approached. "The woman from last night. You want me to handle it?" "Handle it." Dante's voice was dangerously soft. "Make her forget. Standard protocol for civilians who see too much." Dante turned to face his oldest friend, the man who'd saved his life twice and taken bullets meant for him. "If you ever suggest harming her again, protocol or not, we're done. Am I clear?" Alexei's eyebrows rose. In 15 years, he'd never heard Dante speak that way about anyone. "Crystal, what do you want me to do?" "I want a full security detail on her. Discreet. She doesn't know they're there. I want to know everywhere she goes, everyone who approaches her. And I want to know immediately if anyone, and I mean anyone, shows the slightest interest in her. You think they'll come after her? They don't know she exists. They will. Dante moved to the window, looking out at the city that had made him and nearly destroyed him. Because I'm going to make sure of it. 3 days passed like a held breath. Zara tried to return to normal, work, sleep, the careful mathematics of surviving on too little. But normal had developed cracks. She felt eyes on her back when she walked home. Saw the same black SUV parked on her street 2 nights in a row. Told herself she was being paranoid. The money sat untouched in her drawer. The business card she'd thrown away 3 times. Each time, she fished it back out. On the 4th night, as she locked up the diner, a man stepped from the shadows. Not Dante. Someone else. Thinner, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes and a suit that tried too hard to look expensive. Zara Mikhailovna. His accent was thick, Eastern European. I need a moment of your time. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But the diner was behind her, locked. The street was empty. And he was blocking the only path to the bus stop. I don't know you, she said, her hand sliding into her purse, fingers wrapping around her pepper spray. But you know Dante Corvinus. You had him in your home. Very intimate. The way he said intimate made her skin crawl. My employers want to know what he told you. What you saw. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie, Devushka. We know everything. The question is whether you cooperate willingly, or we make you cooperate. He took a step forward. Zara pulled out the pepper spray, her hand steady despite her hammering heart. Take another step and you'll regret it. He laughed. You think that little toy. A hand clamped down on the man's shoulder, spinning him around. Dante stood there, and the transformation from the vulnerable man she'd saved to this version was terrifying. He wore violence like other men wore suits, naturally, comfortably. She told you no, Dante said, his voice arctic. That's where this conversation ends. The man paled. Mr. Corvinus, I was just. You were just leaving. And you're going to tell Victor Constantine that if he sends anyone near her again, I'll burn his entire operation to the ground and salt the earth where it stood. The man practically ran. Zara's legs suddenly felt weak. The adrenaline was crashing, and she grabbed the diner's brick wall for support. Dante was at her side immediately, his hand on her elbow, gentle, steadying. Are you hurt? His eyes scanned her face, her arms, searching for damage. No, how did you know I was here? His jaw tightened. I've had people watching you. Keeping you safe. You've had people watching me? The words came out sharp, angry. Who gave you that right? The same people who just tried to threaten you gave me that necessity. He stepped closer, and she could see the fear beneath his anger. Zara, I told you. Saving me put you in danger. They know you exist now, and they think you're leverage against me. I'm not leverage. I'm nothing to you. I helped you one night, that's all. Something flickered in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, or frustration. Is that what you think? That you're nothing? What else would I be? Before he could answer, another SUV pulled up. This one, she recognized from the past few nights. Alexei stepped out, his expression grim. We need to move. Now. Victor's people are circling the block. Dante's hand was still on her elbow, and now his grip tightened. You're coming with me. I am not. Zara. He turned her to face him, and the desperation in his eyes stopped her protest. Please. Just for tonight. Let me keep you safe. Tomorrow, if you want to walk away, if you want nothing to do with me, I'll respect that. But tonight, please. Trust me one more time. She thought about her empty apartment, the locks that wouldn't stop determined men. Thought about Mrs. Chen next door, who might get caught in crossfire meant for her. Thought about the way this man looked at her, like she mattered, like her safety was worth more than empires. "One night," she said. Relief flooded his features. One night. The penthouse was obscene in its luxury, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, furniture that probably cost more than she'd earn in 5 years, art on the walls that belonged in museums. But Zara barely noticed any of it. She was too aware of Dante moving through the space, shedding his jacket, rolling up his sleeves, revealing forearms corded with muscle and traced with scars. "Are you hungry?" he asked, his voice softer now that they were alone. "I'm confused." Zara set her purse down on a table that looked like it was carved from a single piece of marble. "You said I was in danger. What kind of danger? Who are these people?" Dante poured 2 glasses of whiskey, neat, and offered her one. She took it but didn't drink. "The men who drugged me are part of a syndicate that's been trying to move into my territory for years. Real estate, import-export, things I don't ask too many questions about because asking questions means becoming complicit." He took a long drink. "They thought killing me would create a power vacuum. Instead, I survived, and now they're scrambling. And they think I'm what? Your girlfriend? Some kind of weakness they can exploit. They think you're someone I care about." He met her eyes. "They're not wrong." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with implication. "You don't know me," Zara said quietly. "I know you saved my life when you could have walked away. I know you work yourself to exhaustion helping people who never say thank you. I know you paid your neighbor's electric bill last month because she's on a fixed income and winter was coming." At her shocked expression, he added, "I told you. I've been watching." "That's not romantic, Dante. That's stalking." "I know." He set his glass down and moved closer, but kept distance between them, giving her space to breathe, to choose. "I know it's wrong. I know I have no right to insert myself into your life. But from the moment you knelt beside me in that alley, from the moment you touched my face and whispered that I'd be okay, Zara, I can't stop thinking about you. And in my world, the things we can't stop thinking about are the things that get taken from us. So this is about possession? Protecting your investment?" "No." His voice was rough, raw. "This is about the fact that you're the first person in 15 years who looked at me and saw someone worth saving instead of someone worth using. And I will burn down anyone who tries to hurt you for that." Zara's hands were shaking. She set the whiskey glass down before she dropped it. "I don't know how to exist in your world." "You don't have to exist in my world. I'll exist in yours." "You can't. Look at this place. Look at you. We're from different planets. Then I'll learn to breathe different air." He took a step closer, then another, until he was near enough to touch but still wasn't touching. "Zara, I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not even asking you to like me. I'm just asking you to let me keep you safe until this threat passes. That's all." But they both knew it wasn't all. It was never going to be all. "Where do I sleep?" she asked finally, exhaustion and emotion warring in her voice. Relief softened his features. "The guest room. Down the hall. It locks from the inside." "And Zara," he waited until she looked at him, "thank you. For trusting me again." She nodded and walked toward the hall, feeling his eyes on her back. At the doorway, she paused. "Dante? Those men who want to hurt you. What happens to them?" His expression went cold, dangerous. "They learn why it's a mistake to threaten what's mine." The word mine should have scared her. Instead, it sent something warm and terrifying through her chest. She locked the door behind her and leaned against it, listening to the silence of the penthouse. In the living room, she heard Dante make a phone call, his voice low and lethal as he gave orders she probably didn't want to understand. And for the first time in years, despite everything, Zara felt something she'd almost forgotten existed. Safe. Morning light poured through windows that didn't have curtains because men like Dante didn't fear being watched. Zara woke disoriented, tangled in sheets that felt like silk, in a bed that probably cost more than her car. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then memory crashed back. The threat, the penthouse, the man who'd promised to protect her like it was as natural as breathing. She found him in the kitchen, wearing yesterday's dress shirt with sleeves rolled up, making coffee with the kind of precision that suggested he didn't do this often. His hair was disheveled, and there were shadows under his eyes that said he hadn't slept. "You stayed up all night," she said from the doorway. He turned, and something in his expression softened when he saw her. "Old habit. I don't sleep well when there are threats I can't control." He poured coffee into 2 mugs, expensive ceramic that probably had a designer name. "How do you take it?" "Black is fine." "Liar. You put 3 creams and 2 sugars when you drink it at the diner." She stared at him. "You know how I take my coffee?" "I know a lot of things, Zara. It's how I stay alive." He prepared her coffee exactly right and slid it across the marble counter. "But knowing things about you, that's different. That's not about survival. That's about wanting to understand who you are." She took the mug, and their fingers brushed. The contact sent electricity up her arm. "Tell me something," she said, settling onto one of the bar stools. "How does someone become you? Billionaire with enemies who drug him and a woman he's known for 4 days that he's willing to go to war for." Dante leaned against the counter, coffee in hand, and for a long moment she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "My father built an empire on blood and broken promises. Real estate development that displaced thousands, deals with people who made problems disappear permanently. I was 19 when I realized what he really was." His jaw clenched. "I confronted him. Told him I wanted out, that I wouldn't be part of it anymore." "What did he do?" He laughed. "Said I was soft, that the world would eat me alive. Then he arranged for me to witness a meeting, a negotiation that went wrong. I watched him order a man killed because the man had refused to sell his family's building." Dante's knuckles were white around his mug. "The man had a daughter. She was there." She screamed. Zara's heart clenched. "I tried to stop it. Tried to help them. My father's men held me back, made me watch. Told me this was the cost of power, that I needed to accept it or get out." "So you got out?" "I tried. Left that night with nothing but what I could carry. But in my father's world, you don't just leave." 3 months later, he had a heart attack. Massive. Fatal. And suddenly, everything was mine, the company, the assets, the blood-soaked empire. "I could have walked away then," Dante continued, his voice distant, lost in memory. "Sold it all, disappeared. But I realized something. The empire existed whether I controlled it or not. The question was what I'd do with it. So you took it over." "I took it over and spent the next 15 years dismantling everything my father built on suffering. Sold off the properties, paid restitution to families we displaced, cut ties with every criminal enterprise he'd partnered with." He finally looked at her. "But you don't walk away from that world cleanly. The people my father did business with, they didn't appreciate losing their revenue streams. They've been trying to take me down ever since." "The men who drugged you." "One of many. Victor Constantine was my father's oldest partner. He thinks I'm weak because I chose to be legitimate. He thinks compassion is a flaw." Dante's eyes locked on hers. "And now he knows about you. Which means he thinks he's found the proof." Zara set her coffee down, her hands suddenly unsteady. "That night in the alley. When I found you. You said they'll come back. You knew they wouldn't leave you there dead. You knew they'd come to finish it." "I knew. And you still told me not to call for help. You let me take you to my apartment, knowing it could put me in danger." Guilt flashed across his features. "Yes." "Why?" He moved around the counter until he was standing in front of her, close enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet his eyes. "Because when you touched my face and asked if I could walk, when you looked at me like I was a person worth saving instead of a monster worth leaving, Zara, I was so tired. Tired of fighting, tired of surviving, tired of being alone in rooms full of people. And for one selfish moment, I wanted to be weak. I wanted someone to care that I lived." Her breath caught. "That's the most honest thing anyone's ever said to me." "I'm trying to be better." With you, I want to be better. Zara reached out, her hand hovering near his chest, not quite touching. Show me. Show you what? The scars. You said your father made you watch. What else did he make you do? Dante's throat worked. Slowly, his hands went to the buttons of his shirt. One by one he undid them, his eyes never leaving hers, asking permission, giving her the chance to stop him. She didn't. The shirt fell away, and Zara's breath left her lungs. His torso was a map of violence, old scars crisscrossing his ribs, a burn mark near his shoulder, what looked like a bullet wound above his hip. But it was the scar over his heart that made her throat tight. It was neat, surgical, deliberate. My father's final lesson, Dante said quietly. When I was 22, I tried to help a woman escape one of his trafficking operations. He found out. His hand went to the scar, tracing it unconsciously. He had his doctor open me up, said he wanted to see if I had a heart at all, or if I was just pretending to be human. I was awake for most of it. Oh God. Zara's hand flew to her mouth. Alexei found me. Got me to a real hospital. I survived, but my father made sure I understood. Compassion in his world was punished. Mercy was weakness. Love was a weapon used against you. Is that why you don't let anyone close? It was. Until a woman knelt beside me in an alley and proved that sometimes mercy is the strongest thing you can offer. Zara's hand moved of its own accord, her fingers touching the scar over his heart. She felt him inhale sharply, his whole body going rigid. But he didn't move away. You're not your father, she whispered. How do you know? Because your father would have left me in that alley with you. He would have seen me as collateral damage. But you're here, telling me the truth, showing me your scars. That's not a monster, Dante. That's a man who's been hurt trying not to hurt others. His hand came up to cover hers, pressing her palm flat against his chest. She could feel his heartbeat, rapid, hard. I need you to understand something, he said, his voice rough. What I feel for you, it's not rational. It's not reasonable. You saved me once, and now I'm obsessed with making sure nothing ever harms you. In my father's world, that would make you a target. In mine, it makes you untouchable. What if I don't want to be untouchable? What if I just want to be seen? I see you, Zara. Every part of you. The way you give everything to everyone and keep nothing for yourself. The way you're exhausted but you still smile at customers who don't tip. The way you check on Mrs. Chun even though you barely have enough for yourself. I see you and you're, his voice broke slightly, you're everything good that I thought the world had beaten out of existence. Tears burned her eyes. I don't know how to do this. Whatever this is. Neither do I. But I know I don't want to stop trying. His phone buzzed on the counter, harsh, insistent. Dante ignored it. It buzzed again. You should answer that, Zara said softly. He looked at the screen, and his expression darkened. It's Alexei. Victor made a move. What kind of move? The kind that means you can't go back to your apartment. Not yet. He pulled his shirt back on, buttoning it with swift, efficient movements. He sent men to your building. They're watching it. Fear spiked through her. Mrs. Chun is fine. I had her moved to a secure location last night. She thinks it's a free senior retreat. She's being taken care of. Zara didn't know whether to be grateful or furious. You can't just move people around like chess pieces. I can when it keeps them alive. He picked up his phone. Alexei, give me a full report. While he talked, Zara walked to the windows, looking out at the city that suddenly felt like a cage. Her life had been small, manageable. Now it was wrapped up in violence and protection, obsession and fear. But beneath the fear was something else. Something that felt dangerously like hope. She felt Dante come up behind her, not touching but close enough that she could feel his warmth. "Tell me about your mother," he said quietly. The request surprised her. "Why?" "Because you said her prayer over me when you thought I was dying. Because she taught you to save broken things. I want to know who made you who you are." Zara's reflection in the window showed tears on her cheeks she hadn't realized were falling. She was a nurse. Worked night shifts at County General for 23 years. When I was little, she'd come home smelling like antiseptic and exhaustion, but she always had time for me. Always made breakfast before she slept, always asked about my day. How did she die? Ovarian cancer. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. I dropped out of nursing school to take care of her. Spent everything we had on treatments that didn't work. She died holding my hand, telling me that the world needed people like me, people who still believed broken things could be saved. She was right. Zara turned to face him. Was she? Because right now I feel like I'm drowning. I saved you, and now my entire life is upside down. Men are threatening me. I can't go home. And you, she gestured helplessly at him, you're standing here telling me you're obsessed with me, that you'll burn down anyone who hurts me, and I don't know if that's romantic or terrifying. It's both, Dante said simply. I know it is. But Zara, I need you to know, you can walk away. Right now. I'll make sure you're safe, set you up somewhere new, give you enough money that you never have to work double shifts again. You can have a life that has nothing to do with me or my world. And if I don't want to walk away? His eyes searched hers. Then I need you to understand what you're choosing. My world is dangerous. The people in it are worse. And he reached out, his hand cupping her face with a gentleness that contradicted everything she just learned about him. I'm not a good man, Zara. I'm a man trying to be good. There's a difference. She leaned into his touch, feeling the calluses on his palm, the warmth of his skin. I think you're wrong. I think you're a good man who was taught to be a monster and chose humanity anyway. That takes more strength than you know. You make me want to believe that. Then believe it. They stood there, the city stretching out below them, two people from different worlds trying to find common ground in the space between violence and mercy, between fear and trust. Dante's phone buzzed again. This time, when he looked at it, his whole body went rigid. What? Zara asked. Victor just made his play. He's threatening to expose my legitimate businesses as fronts for my father's old operations unless I meet with him. Alone. Tonight. That's a trap. Of course it's a trap. So you're not going. Dante looked at her, and she saw the calculation in his eyes, the cold, dangerous part of him that had survived 15 years of this world. I have to. Because if I don't, he'll come after you to force my hand. This way, I control when and how it happens. By walking into a trap. By ending this. He pulled out his phone, typing rapidly. Alexei will stay with you. 24-hour security. No one gets near this building. Dante. He crossed to her, taking her face in both hands. Listen to me. No matter what happens tonight, you're protected. I've set up accounts in your name, safe houses, everything you need. If something goes wrong. Nothing's going to go wrong. If something goes wrong, he continued firmly, promise me you'll use them. Promise me you'll live. Zara's hands came up to grip his wrists. Promise me you'll come back. I promise I'll try. It wasn't enough. But looking into his eyes, seeing the determination and fear and something that looked dangerously like love, she knew it was all he could give. Then try hard, she whispered. He leaned down, his forehead resting against hers. You've made me want things I thought I'd never have. Safety. Peace. Someone to come home to. His breath ghosted across her lips. Thank you for that. Then he was gone, leaving her standing in the penthouse that suddenly felt too big and too empty, wondering when she'd started needing him to come back. If you were in Zara's position, would you let him go to face danger alone, or would you fight to go with him? What does real protection look like to you? Hours crawled by like wounded animals. Zara paced the penthouse, her phone clutched in her hand, willing it to ring. Alexei stood by the door, silent and watchful, his presence both comforting and a constant reminder that Dante was walking into danger. "How long have you worked for him?" she asked finally, needing to fill the silence with something other than her racing thoughts. Alexei's eyes shifted to her. He was a mountain of a man, with scars that told stories and eyes that had seen too much. 15 years. Since the day after his father died. "You saved him." She gestured vaguely at her chest. "I found him bleeding out in his father's office. The old man's doctor had left him there to die as a final lesson." Alexei's jaw clenched. "I carried him out myself." Dante was barely conscious, but he kept saying, "Don't let me become him. Whatever happens, don't let me become him." And did he? "You tell me. You're the one he's willing to die for." The words hit like a physical blow. "He's not going to die." "No," Alexei agreed. "Because Dante Corvinus is the most stubborn, calculating, ruthless man I've ever known. And right now, he has something to live for. That makes him more dangerous than Victor could possibly understand." Zara moved to the window, watching the city lights flicker like dying stars. "Tell me about the woman. The one his father's men killed. The daughter who screamed." Alexei was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, her name was Irina. She was 16. Her father owned a small grocery store in the district Dante's father wanted to develop. When he wouldn't sell, they made an example of him. What happened to her? Dante tried to help her afterward. Secretly. Set up a trust fund. Paid for therapy, education. She never knew it was him. She moved to Boston, became a social worker. Last I checked, she was helping trafficking survivors rebuild their lives. Tears burned Zara's eyes. He saved her. He saves everyone he can. It's his penance. His religion. The thing that lets him sleep at night, barely. Alexei moved closer, his voice dropping. "You need to understand something, Zara. Dante doesn't do anything halfway. If he says he'll protect you, he'll die doing it. If he says he cares about you, it's not casual. It's absolute. That should terrify me. Does it?" She thought about the way Dante had looked at her that morning, showing her his scars, literal and metaphorical. The way his voice had broken when he'd said she was everything good. The way he'd touched her face like she was made of something precious. "No," she admitted quietly. "It makes me feel seen. For the first time in my life, someone sees me and thinks I'm worth something." "You are worth something. You're worth everything to him." Before Zara could respond, Alexei's phone rang. He answered immediately, his expression darkening as he listened. "Understood. Keep the perimeter secure." He hung up and looked at Zara. "Dante's at the meeting location. Victor brought 20 men. Dante brought 5. That's suicide. That's strategy. Victor thinks numbers mean power. Dante knows better." Zara's phone suddenly buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "I'm okay. Trust me. D." Her fingers trembled as she typed back, "Come home safe." 3 dots appeared. Then, home. I liked the sound of that. The text made her chest tight. When had this penthouse started feeling like home? When had Dante started feeling like someone worth waiting for? Another hour passed. Then another. Zara had worn a path in the expensive carpet when Alexei's phone rang again. This time, his entire posture changed, relaxing, relieved. "It's done," he said. "Dante's on his way back. Victor's been neutralized." What does neutralized mean? It means he won't be a threat anymore. The details, you probably don't want to know. He was right. She didn't. 20 minutes later, the elevator doors opened, and Dante stepped into the penthouse. He looked exhausted, his suit jacket was gone, his shirt had blood on the sleeve, not his she hoped, and there was a cut above his eyebrow. But he was alive. He was whole. Zara was across the room before she could think, her hands reaching for his face, checking for damage. You're hurt. It's nothing. Superficial. His hands came up to cover hers. Zara, I'm fine. You have blood on you. Not mine. He looked past her to Alexei. Victor's operation has been dismantled. His assets frozen, his people scattered. He's currently on a plane to Moscow with the understanding that if he ever sets foot in this country again, he won't leave it alive. You let him go? I let him run. There's a difference. Running means he knows he lost. It means everyone in our world knows he lost. Dante's eyes found hers again. It means you're safe. Something in Zara's chest cracked open. Maybe it was relief, maybe it was the adrenaline finally crashing, but suddenly she was crying, great, gasping sobs that shook her whole body. Dante pulled her against his chest immediately, his arms wrapping around her like he could shield her from everything, including her own fear. Hey, it's over. You're safe. I've got you. I thought, she couldn't get the words out between sobs. I thought you weren't coming back. I promised you I'd try. I keep my promises. His hand stroked her hair, gentle, soothing. Breathe, Zara. Just breathe. She felt Alexei quietly leave, heard the elevator doors close. Then it was just the two of them in the enormous penthouse, holding on to each other like they were the only solid things in a tilting world. Gradually, her sobs quieted to hiccups, then to shaky breaths. But she didn't pull away, and Dante didn't let go. I was scared, she whispered against his chest. So was I. You were. He pulled back just enough to look at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes stole her breath. Terrified. Not of Victor or his men. Of the idea that I might not see you again. That I'd finally found someone who made me want to be better, and I'd lose them before I could prove I was worth the chance. Dante. Let me finish. His thumb brushed away her tears. I know this is too fast. I know it's insane. We've known each other less than a week, and I'm standing here telling you that you've become essential to me. That the thought of a world without you in it makes me want to burn everything down. That is insane, she agreed, but her hands were clutching his shirt, holding him close. I know. But I also know that life is fragile. I've watched good people die for no reason. I've survived things I shouldn't have survived. And I've learned that when something matters, you don't wait. You don't play it safe. You hold on with everything you have. And I matter? You matter more than anything. His forehead touched hers. Zara, I'm not asking you to love me. I'm not asking you to give up your life or change who you are. I'm just asking, let me be part of your world. Let me know what it's like to come home to someone who sees me as a person, not a weapon or a wallet or a mistake. Her breath caught. What if I can't be what you need? You already are. You're kind in a world that rewards cruelty. You're gentle with people who don't deserve it. You save broken things without asking what you'll get in return. His hands framed her face. You saved me, Zara. Not just in that alley. Right now. Just by being who you are. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. Neither do I. But maybe we figure it out together. She looked up at him, this powerful, dangerous man who was looking at her like she held his entire world in her hands. And maybe she did. Maybe they held each other's worlds, fragile and new and terrifying. Okay, she said softly. Okay. Okay, we figure it out together. But Dante, she pressed her palm over his heart, feeling it race. I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more secrets. No more hiding things to protect me. If we're doing this, we're doing it as equals. I'm not some delicate thing that needs to be kept in the dark. Something like pride flickered in his eyes. No, you're not. You're the strongest person I've ever met. He covered her hand with his. No more secrets. I promise. And no more walking into traps alone. That one I can't promise. Sometimes it's necessary. Then promise you'll always come back. His eyes searched hers, and she saw him weighing the words, knowing that some promises couldn't be guaranteed, that his world didn't allow for absolutes. But then he nodded. I promise I'll fight like hell to come back. Every single time. Because now I have something worth coming back to. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't a fairy tale. But it was real and raw, and more than she'd ever hoped for. Zara stood on her toes and kissed him. It was gentle at first, tentative, questioning. But then Dante's hand slid into her hair, and he kissed her back like she was oxygen and he'd been drowning. Like she was the answer to questions he'd stopped asking because he thought there were no answers left. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Dante rested his forehead against hers. Stay, he whispered. Not just tonight. Stay. I have a job. An apartment. A life. Keep them. All of them. Just come back here when you're done. Let this be a place you come home to. Let me be someone you come home to. Zara thought about her empty apartment, the silence that greeted her after every shift. Thought about eating dinner alone, falling asleep alone, waking up alone. Thought about what it might be like to have someone waiting, someone who looked at her the way Dante was looking at her now. One condition, she said. Name it. I'm not your kept woman. I'm not going to quit my job and live in your penthouse like some kind of trophy. I work because I want to, not because I need to. And I pay my own way. A smile tugged at his lips, genuine, warm. You're negotiating with a billionaire about paying rent. I'm establishing boundaries with a man who has a tendency to make unilateral decisions. He laughed, and the sound was rusty, like he didn't do it often. Fine. You pay rent. $1 a month. Dante. Take it or leave it. That's my counteroffer. His eyes were dancing now, playful in a way she'd never seen. And before you argue, consider that I could buy the entire building your apartment is in with pocket change. $1 a month is me compromising. She wanted to argue. But looking at him, seeing the hope and fear and tentative joy in his expression, she realized this wasn't about money. It was about him wanting to take care of her in the only way he knew how, and her wanting to maintain her independence. Maybe they could meet in the middle. $5 a month. And I cook dinner 3 nights a week. Deal. He sealed it with another kiss, this one softer, sweeter. God, Zara. What have you done to me? I saved you. Remember. You keep saving me. Every time you look at me like that. Like I'm someone worth saving. You are worth saving, Dante. You always were. They stood there, wrapped in each other, the city glittering below them like a promise. Outside, the world was still dangerous. Victor might be gone, but there would be others. Threats didn't disappear just because you wanted them to. But inside this moment, in this space they were carving out together, there was something neither of them had expected to find. Peace. And maybe, just maybe, the beginning of something that looked like love. 3 weeks of fragile happiness followed. Zara kept her job at the diner, kept her routine, but her evenings changed. She'd come home, and it was home now, strange as that felt, to find Dante waiting. Sometimes he'd be working, his laptop open on the dining table, but he'd always stop when she walked in. Always look up like her arrival was the best part of his day. They learned each other in small moments. She discovered he couldn't cook to save his life, but made excellent coffee. He learned she hummed while washing dishes and talked to herself when she was tired. They shared meals, shared silence, shared the careful dance of 2 people learning to trust. But trust, Zara was learning, was a fragile thing. It shattered on a Tuesday. She came home early, her shift cut short because the diner was slow, and found Dante in his office, door ajar. She was about to call out to him when she heard Alexei's voice, tense and urgent. You can't keep this from her, Dante. She has a right to know. She doesn't need to know. It's handled. It's not handled. Victor's nephew is in the city. He's been asking questions, making threats. He knows about Zara. Zara's blood turned to ice. I said it's handled. Dante's voice was cold, dangerous, the voice of the man he'd been before her. I've got people on it. He won't get within a mile of her. And when he does, when he gets lucky or gets smart, you think she'll forgive you for keeping her in the dark. Better she's angry and alive than informed and dead. The words hit like a slap. Zara pushed the door open fully, and both men turned to face her. Dante's expression shifted immediately, guilt, fear, resignation playing across his features. Zara. Victor's nephew is in the city. Her voice was eerily calm. Making threats. And you weren't going to tell me. I was protecting you. By lying to me? The calm cracked, anger surging through. We had a deal, Dante. No secrets. You promised. This is different. How? How is this different? She stepped into the office, her hands clenched into fists. You promised me we were equals. That you wouldn't hide things to protect me. And the first real threat that comes along, you go right back to making decisions for me, like I'm some kind of child who can't handle the truth. Dante's jaw tightened. You want the truth? Fine. Mikhail Konstantin landed in the city 4 days ago. He's got a crew of 15, all ex-military, all loyal to Victor's memory. He's been systematically mapping your routine, where you work, where you shop, which route you take home. He's not just making threats, Zara. He's planning something. And yes, I kept it from you because I didn't want you living in fear while I dealt with it. The room spun. 4 days. He'd known for 4 days and said nothing. She'd been walking around, oblivious, while someone planned God knows what. You should have told me, she said, her voice shaking. So you could do what? Quit your job? Hide in the penthouse? Live in constant terror. Dante moved toward her, but she stepped back. The hurt that flashed across his face was visceral. Zara, I've built my entire life around protecting people. Around fixing my father's mistakes. Let me protect you. I don't need you to protect me from the truth. Yes, you do. The words came out harsh, desperate. Because the truth is ugly and violent, and it destroys good people. You're good, Zara. You're the best thing in my world, and I will not let this life, my life, turn you into someone hard and scared and suspicious of every shadow. That's not your choice to make. It is when I'm the reason you're in danger. His control snapped, and suddenly all the careful restraint he'd shown for weeks crumbled. Don't you understand? Everything you're going through, the threats, the fear, having to look over your shoulder, it's because of me. Because I was weak enough to want you, selfish enough to keep you. You saved my life, and I've repaid you by painting a target on your back. Tears burned her eyes. So this is guilt? Everything between us, it's just guilt. No. The word came out broken. God, no. But maybe it should be. Maybe the right thing, the good thing, would be to let you go. Set you up somewhere safe, somewhere far away from me and this world. Let you have a normal life with a normal man who doesn't come with death threats and bodyguards. The words hung in the air like shards of broken glass. Is that what you want? Zara asked quietly. To let me go? Dante looked at her, and the agony in his eyes was answer enough. I want you safe. Even if that means safe from me. You don't get to decide that. You don't get to make that choice for me. Then what do you want me to do, Zara? Wait until Mikhail makes his move? Wait until he hurts you to prove a point? I've seen what these men do to people they want to hurt. I've seen the aftermath. His voice cracked. I won't let that happen to you. So you'll lie to me instead? Keep me in the dark and make decisions about my life without me. If it keeps you alive, yes. The admission fell between them like a death sentence. Alexei cleared his throat. I'll give you two some privacy. He left, closing the door behind him. Zara stared at the man she'd started to love, really love, not just the idea of him but the reality of him. And she saw clearly, perhaps for the first time, the fundamental difference in how they saw the world. He saw her as something to protect, to shield, to keep safe at any cost, even the cost of her autonomy, her agency, her right to make her own choices. She saw him as an equal partner, someone to face danger with, not someone to hide behind. "My mother died slowly," she said, her voice hollow. "Cancer ate her from the inside while I watched, helpless. The doctors made decisions without consulting her, what treatments to try, when to stop trying. They thought they were helping, thought they knew better. And she let them, because she was tired and scared and she trusted them." Dante's expression shifted, understanding dawning. The last week of her life, she looked at me and said, "I wish I'd fought more. Insisted on knowing everything. Made my own choices instead of letting everyone else decide what was best for me." Zara's voice broke. "I held her hand while she died, Dante. And I promised myself I'd never let anyone, no matter how much they loved me, no matter how good their intentions, make decisions about my life without me." "Zara, you broke that promise. You decided I couldn't handle the truth, that I needed to be protected from reality. And maybe you did it because you care. Maybe you did it because you love me." She saw him flinch at the word. But loving someone doesn't give you the right to control their life, even if you think you're saving them. "I don't know how to do this any other way." His admission was raw, vulnerable. "Every person I've ever cared about, I've lost. My mother died when I was 12. My father twisted me into a weapon. The people I've tried to help, some of them didn't make it, no matter what I did. So yes, when I found you, when I realized you mattered, my instinct was to lock you away somewhere safe. To control every variable. Because losing you," his voice broke completely, "Zara, losing you would destroy what's left of me." Her heart clenched painfully. "But you're losing me anyway. Right now. By doing exactly what you're trying to prevent." The truth of it hit him visibly. She watched him struggle with it, watched the war play out across his features. The part of him that wanted to argue, to insist he knew best, warring with the part that loved her enough to hear her. "What do you want from me?" he asked finally. "The truth. Always. Even when it's ugly. Especially when it's ugly. And if the truth is that I don't think I can do that? That every instinct I have screams at me to hide you away, to handle things myself, to keep you innocent of the violence in my world? Then maybe," the words tasted like ash, "maybe we can't do this after all." The silence that followed was devastating. Dante moved to his desk, bracing his hands against it like it was the only thing holding him up. "Is that what you want? To leave?" "I want a partner, not a protector. I want someone who trusts me enough to be honest, even when the honesty is terrifying. Can you be that person, Dante?" He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "I don't know." Those 3 words broke something in her chest. Because they were honest, more honest than any promise would have been. And honesty, she was realizing, sometimes hurt worse than lies. "Then I think," she had to force the words out, "I think I need to go. Just for a little while. To figure out if what we have is real or if it's just trauma bonding and fear dressed up as love." "Zara, please. I'll stay at a hotel. Somewhere safe. You can have Alexei watch over me if you need to." She moved toward the door, each step feeling like walking through concrete. "But I need space to think. And you need time to figure out if you can love me the way I need to be loved, as an equal, not as something precious you need to lock away." She made it to the door before his voice stopped her. "I do love you." The confession was wrecked, raw. "I know I haven't said it, but I do. From the moment you touched my face in that alley and promised me I'd be okay, Zara, I've been yours. Completely. Terrifyingly yours." She turned to look at him, tears streaming down her face. "I love you too. That's why this hurts so much. Because love without trust is just beautiful pain. And I've had enough pain in my life." "So have I." He straightened, and she saw him pull the armor back on, the cold control that had kept him alive in a brutal world. "But you're right. You deserve better than what I can give you. You deserve someone who isn't broken in all the ways that matter." "Dante. Go, Zara. Before I do something stupid like beg you to stay. Before I make promises I don't know if I can keep." His eyes met hers, and the devastation in them nearly broke her resolve. "But know this, whether you're here or not, whether we're together or not, I'll keep you safe. That's not negotiable. That's not something I'll ever stop doing. Even if I don't want you to? Even then." And there it was, the fundamental impasse. He couldn't stop trying to protect her. She couldn't accept being protected at the cost of her autonomy. Zara walked out of the office, grabbed her coat, and left the penthouse that had briefly felt like home. The elevator ride down felt endless. Each floor a countdown to the moment when she'd step out into the city alone, without the safety net she'd gotten used to. In the lobby, Alexei appeared at her side. "He asked me to make sure you get to a hotel safely," he said quietly. Of course he did. She couldn't keep the bitterness from her voice. "For what it's worth, he's never let anyone in before you. Never shown his scars, never admitted he was scared. You changed him." "Not enough." "Maybe. Or maybe he just needs time to catch up to the person you're helping him become." They rode in silence to a hotel, upscale, discreet, the kind of place where no one asked questions. Alexei checked her in, swept the room for threats she couldn't see, and left her with a card that had a single number on it. "Emergency line. It reaches me directly, bypasses everyone else. Use it if you need anything." When he was gone, Zara sat on the edge of the bed that felt too big and too empty, and finally let herself break. She cried for the love she'd found too fast and might be losing just as quickly. Cried for Dante, trapped in patterns of control because the alternative was facing how little control anyone really had. Cried for herself, for wanting something that might be impossible: safety and freedom, protection and autonomy, love without chains. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number: "I'm sorry. For all of it. D." She stared at the message for a long time before typing back, "So am I." 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Then, "I'll try to be better. I don't know if I can. But for you I'll try." It wasn't enough. But maybe, just maybe, it was a start. Zara didn't see Dante for weeks. She returned to her small life, her diner shifts, her quiet apartment, the fragile illusion of normalcy. But normal had changed shape. Every siren outside made her tense. Every black car on the street made her heart stutter. She wasn't sure if it was fear or longing. He'd texted twice since that night, nothing demanding, nothing manipulative. "Are you safe? Thinking of you." She hadn't replied. It wasn't anger keeping her silent. It was confusion, the ache of loving someone who taught her safety could feel like a cage. Across the city, Dante sat in his office, staring at security feeds he no longer needed to watch. Zara's apartment building glowed on one of the monitors, small and grainy, but he couldn't bring himself to shut it off. Alexei entered quietly. "She's safe. Still working double shifts. Still doesn't take the car you sent." "I told you not to give her anything else," Dante said flatly. "You told me not to protect her," Alexei countered. "I'm not. I'm updating you." Dante gave a humorless smile. "You sound like her. Maybe you should listen then." Alexei folded his arms. "You let her walk away, but you never stopped holding on. You can't protect someone and set them free at the same time, boss. You have to pick." Dante looked out the window. "I'm trying to learn how." "Then maybe stop learning alone." One evening, rain drummed against the diner's windows. Zara was closing up when the door chimed. She turned and froze. Dante stood there, drenched, unguarded, no entourage, no armor. Just him. Her heart leapt and clenched all at once. "Dante." "I'm not here to drag you back," he said, voice low, steady. "I just needed to see you. To say something I should have said weeks ago." Zara hesitated. The diner was empty, quiet except for the hum of the fridge and the rain outside. "Then say it." He stepped closer, every line of him tense. "I love you. Not the kind of love that cages or commands. The kind that stands beside. I didn't understand the difference before. You taught me." Her breath caught. And what changed? I did, he said simply. Because I finally realized that protection means trust. If I can't trust you to make your own choices, then I don't deserve to protect you at all. Tears stung her eyes. You really believe that? I have to. Because I can't be my father. And if I lose you by trying to love you right this time, at least I'll lose you honestly. She looked at him for a long, quiet moment. You hurt me, Dante. I know. His voice cracked. I wake up every morning wishing I could undo it. Then stop wishing. Start proving. He blinked. How? Let me in. No secrets. No shadows. If you face danger, I face it with you. If you build something new, I help you build it. I'm not a porcelain thing to keep safe on a shelf. I'm a woman who chose to save you. Let me choose to stand with you too. A long silence. Then slowly, Dante nodded, the smallest, most human gesture she'd ever seen him make. Then stand with me. That night, they walked together for hours through the rain-soaked city. No bodyguards, no luxury cars, no fear. Just two people trying to find balance in a world that didn't make space for softness. When Dante finally took her hand, it wasn't possessive. It was steady, grounding. And Zara didn't pull away. Months passed. Zara didn't move into the penthouse. She still worked at the diner. But sometimes after her shift, a sleek black car would pull up, and Dante would be waiting, no longer a man of marble and control, but one who smiled, laughed, and sometimes burned pancakes at 2 a.m. He told her about his past, piece by piece, the people he'd hurt, the empires he'd dismantled, the guilt he carried like a second skin. She listened without judgment, and when he faltered, she reminded him that redemption wasn't a single act. It was 1,000 small choices made daily. One night, he showed her a file. A proposal for something new. A foundation, he said, named after your mother. For women starting over, from abuse, from poverty, from anything. You once said broken things can be saved. I want to build a life around that. Zara's throat tightened. Dante. This isn't me buying forgiveness, he said quietly. It's me learning what love looks like when it's not about power. She took his hand. Then let's build it together. 6 months later. The Mikhailovna Foundation opened in a renovated building downtown, sunlight streaming through tall windows, laughter echoing in halls that once held silence. Zara ran it, of course. Dante funded it, but never took credit. Reporters called him reclusive, ruthless, mysterious. But the people who mattered, the ones who came for help, the ones who rebuilt their lives, they called him something else. Good. One evening, after the last visitor left, Zara stood by the window overlooking the city. Dante came up behind her, slipping his arms around her waist. Tired, he murmured. Happy, she said. You. Terrified, he admitted. Of losing this. Of losing you. She turned in his arms. You're not going to lose me, Dante. Not as long as you remember, I don't need saving. I know, he said, smiling faintly. But I'll keep trying anyway. She laughed softly, pressing her forehead to his. Then I'll keep reminding you. They kissed as the city lights flickered to life below, two broken people who'd found something worth fighting for, not through power, but through surrender. And somewhere deep inside, Dante Corvinus, the man who'd once believed love was weakness, finally understood what his father never could. That real strength isn't in control. It's in letting yourself be saved.